The Little Rain Cloud. July 5, 2020 by Anna von Reitz. My mother described me in terms of being a stubborn little rain cloud of the kind that appears in the late afternoon and by bedtime has become a storm, complete with thunder and lightning. Guilty as charged. I appear as a harbinger of things to come. A great many patriots who have been depending, waiting, and believing that surely, Mr. Trump would deliver the long-awaited disclosures on July 4, have been sadly disappointed. No whisper of any gallant military intervention in business as usual. No hint that the traitors in Congress have been dealt with. No, nothing of the sort. No announcements about new currency or rescued children or even an end to the senselessly destructive COVID-19 farce. Just more platitudes about what a great country this is and how inventive and plucky and talented our people are. In fact, the only real message the President Trump delivered was veiled as an attributed saying of Martin Luther King Jr., almost an hour and 40 minutes 1 hour 38 minutes and 44 seconds into the Mount Rushmore speech, in which MLK and Donald Trump assert that our founding fathers signed a promissory note applying to future generations. Well, Mr. President, let's all have a look at that premise right now. What happens to their debts when people die? They are supposed to be collected from their estate or written off, they are in no case supposed to accrue as debt owed by their progeny. Yet, using this idea of a non-existent promissory note, generations of Americans have been saddled with debts that they do not in fact owe. All debts of all Americans were paid off during the Andrew Jackson administration and no further indebtedness was entered into, much to the chagrin of the European central banks, by Americans ever since. We are in fact the priority creditors of these institutions, including the Federal Reserve. So why is President Trump standing there in the shoes of FDR, referring to promissory notes written by the founders? All their promissory notes have been paid off since before the Civil War. The entire debt accrued since then has not been at the behest of the American states and people. Instead, all those promissory notes have been signed by British territorial U.S. citizens, most of whom don't exist, and by municipal persons that don't exist, either. Think of a fraud scheme in which 640 million fake legal persons are created out of thin air, via the use of unconscionable contracting processes, and the assets of the people these legal persons are named after, are attached as collateral backing the debts of these puppets? These voodoo doll-like legal constructs? That's what has been going on here in this country ever since the Civil War. And we have been conscripted and enslaved and our property assets have been stolen to pay the debts of these fabricated citizens. Mr. Trump, do you really want to talk about promissory notes and debts owed by the Founding Fathers? I think you should instead pay attention to the promissory notes being floated by members of the U.S. Congress and the Congress of the Municipal United States. All our debts are long paid and we have stood on the creditor side of the ledger since the days of Andrew Jackson. The debts are not ours and we did not knowingly or willingly conscript ourselves and neither did our mothers donate us as wards of any territorial state of state. These horrible and egregious wrongs against the American states and people will not go away or be misinterpreted as anything but the criminal and predatory breach of trust and commercial contract that they are. Your corporations, Mr. Trump, and their principals, are at fault. You guys have been the ones writing all the promissory notes against our assets behind our backs and you are the ones that owe us a complete accounting and a forthright and honest settlement of all these accounts that you have created in our names without any authority or conscionable contract to do so. We stand upon the land and soil of this great country and no amount of European charlatanism will change the facts. This horrific commercial fraud and crime against your employers has got to end. In recent days, it has been rumored that you, Mr. Trump, have out-blackmailed the professional blackmailers at the Vatican. We have been informed of this dubious triumph, but the end effect is that we have a better blackmailer working for us, as opposed to having an honest government and the moral high ground that the American states and people are owed. If we leave it at the cheaters being out-cheated, what good is that? The times will change and more cheating will abound, new and different excuses for enslaving future generations will be found. How does what you proposed, the existence of promissory notes written by earlier generations, correct the actual problem, which is systemic, institutionalized commercial and international fraud and breach of trust against the American people? It doesn't. And that's why, Mr. Trump, despite all the nice words for this 4th of July, your actions fall far short of any satisfactory answer or due correction. If you enjoy having Anna's latest articles made into videos, please consider making a purchase from Ed's website sacredintuitiveelements.com. Thank you.